Oceans Roadshow. It's an activity that we've developed at the university to take our science on the road. And all the people that you see around the room either work for the university or are postdocs or postgrads. They're doing PhDs, or they've done PhDs and they're carrying on doing further research in some aspect of ocean science.
My name's Steve Dorney. Most of the time I work for the Institute of Sound and Vibration Research at the University of Southampton, where I do outreach and public engagement activities. I also have a wider job, which is to project manage new public engagement activities from engineering and science and maths aspects of the university, and that's what the Roadshow is today. It's something we put together from a range of different schools within the university around the theme of ocean science.
And I'm a PhD student at the National Oceanography Centre in Southampton, and my project's concerned with looking at observations of the ocean and how they can tell us a bit about climate change. Okay, so our stand today is looking at how the ocean moves, so how ocean circulation works by means of something called the Great Atlantic Conveyor belt. And our demonstration today is looking at what mechanisms force that movement of water. So we're looking at changing the density, so the mass of the water, how heavier water will sink and drive a circulation.
So what we're going to do here, guys, is we're going to start off just with an experiment using this flow tank. We're going to use it as a way of illustrating what actually makes ocean circulation, what makes ocean currents go. So if you could just pour the salt into this end for me. Yeah, if you grab this and just pour it in here. And if you start stirring, we just want to stir it around and keep moving it so that the salt dissolves. It takes about 20 seconds or so, something like that. I'm going to add just a little bit of food colouring as well. I'll ask you to do that, so I'm the one with multicoloured cans at the end of it. On this side, we've got salty yellow water on this side, we've got just normal tap water on this side. And the reason we're dissolving salt into this side is once the salt's dissolved into the water, when you've got this salty water, it makes the water on this side heavier, it makes it denser than the normal fresh water on this side. So if I can get someone to pull out the lock gate for me, so if you just come here. It's exciting stuff, brilliant. So hopefully, it's kind of hard to see from the top, you can see that just making its way along the bottom of the tank, yeah? Out here.
And it's this that brings the warm water from equatorial regions up to the western coasts of Europe, and it's really what affects our climate. And what we're interested in showing today is how the circulation can be affected by climate change.
Yeah, what we have here is an activity where you try and beat the dolphin in echolocation. You might already know that dolphins navigate through the ocean through echolocation. And what we've done is we've modelled that so that it's within the range of human hearing. And you have to try and discriminate between 4 different sounds. Obviously dolphins have to cope with a range of different echo sources, but we've given you 4 specific ones that you can try and learn very quickly, get quite good at discriminating those, and then try and get a high score by beating the dolphin about competing about which source is which. So we have, for instance, a flooded container that gives you a kind of ping type sound as it comes back, and you just try and work out whether that's different from the sound you get back from a school of fish. And today's high scores are very good. It's 45. People have managed 45 correct answers in a row. Trouble is, when you get one wrong, it stops and goes back to 0. So it's a hard task, and much harder for dolphins when you have human-made environmental noise in the oceans. And we've modelled that as well, so that as you get beyond about 10 or 12 in the system, you'll find that you've got noises coming in. So, for instance, a drilling noise, so like the sound of seismic activity, and also a ship going past. And trying to discriminate objects while that's going on is much trickier.
My name is Gerard McCarthy, and I'm studying a PhD in physical oceanography at the National Oceanography Centre in Southampton. What I'm studying is in the South Atlantic. I'm looking at the variation of the ocean and looking at the timescales on which it varies, which is very important in the context of climate and how the ocean plays into climate. What we're demonstrating today is the technology that is revolutionary using how we look at the oceans. So in the old days, what we used to do when we studied the ocean was to go out on a research ship, which took a long time and a lot of money to gather our data. Nowadays we can use free drifting profiling floats, which is the focus of our display today. There are 3,000 of these floats in the ocean, and they're providing for the first time the subsurface salinity and temperature, which is so crucial for determining what the ocean is doing on a real-time basis.
they're finding out about the complete hidden world under the ocean and how difficult it is to study that world, but also some of the amazing sort of data that you can get, and the images on the cameras and things like that they're seeing from the seabed that's normally beyond reach. So I suppose it's almost like the next best thing to be able to get there. Some of the students have been actually driving a remotely operated vehicle on a simulator to go and collect samples from the seabed.
Students are getting a huge amount out of this. They can see that science isn't just in boxes, just biology, chemistry, physics. It's a massive overlap with maths and engineering. It's been really interesting talking to the PhD students as well, that their work that they're doing is part of very, very long projects, some of them going into decades, and how it impacts on the real world.
And the great thing is, I think, that students have got to talk to people who are a huge range of experts in different fields and realise that science is a little bit about biology, it's a bit about the physics of underwater exploration, it's an engineering problem, it's to do with high-tech solutions to problems, and that there is no real sort of dividing line. If oceanography and lots of other forms of science crosses lots of boundaries and barriers, so I think that's a really important sort of dynamic picture that they're getting of it.
My name's Anya.
My name's Helen.
And we're both PhD students from the University of Southampton, looking at the history of the oceans and the Earth's climate and how it's changed over time.
So what we study is called paleoclimatology or paleoceanography. So as we said, the study of oceans or climate in the past. And what we're demonstrating today is how you get a record of how the oceans were behaving in the past from ocean sediments.
And the process by which we get these by drilling the sea floor to recover these basic timelines in the form of sticks of mud.
My name's Stuart. I'm a second year PhD student at the University of Southampton. I'm working on ocean sediment research.
My name's Kirsty. I'm also a second year PhD at Southampton, and I'm working on deep sea coral reefs and their genetics.
Our exhibit is called Mountains of Deep. It's all about deep sea underwater mountains, the largest of which is actually taller than Mount Everest. Now these are very important for deep sea ecology because they provide sort of traps for nutrients which are then used by deep sea creatures such as corals, and that goes right up through the food chain, things like fish. And my colleague is concentrating more on deep sea corals themselves, and we'll tell you a little bit about that.
I'm demonstrating what deep sea corals are and just showing. I've got two examples of them to allow people to have a look at them. And these corals are important because a lot of people don't actually realise that there are corals in the deep sea. They just think of the shallow water corals, and the ones that we have on exhibit are from 3,000 metres. So we're just showing that they are actually in all the oceans everywhere, and they're important for habitat communities because they provide food and shelter for everybody. So if you start to remove them, then you're removing a whole habitat. And we're also showing a video of what it's like to be inside a submarine, which we use to actually take some of the samples of the corals.
Okay, my name's Rob Curry, and I work for a project called the Serpent Project at the National Oceanography Centre in Southampton. My presentation is a deep sea ROV simulator. ROV stands for Remotely Operated Vehicle. And basically what we're doing with the ROVs, we're picking up creatures and we're placing them in baskets. It kind of emulates what we do in the deep ocean with the oil and gas companies, which is the main work that we do. And the ROVs are offered by the oil and gas companies so that we can do this deep sea research.
So the oceans have a really important effect on climate change.
They provide a real sort of regulating influence on global climate.
I think the oceans, for an island nation like Britain and Ireland, where I come from, the oceans are so important, and especially in northwest Europe, where the oceans are keeping us so much warmer than we probably should be.
Oceans are interesting because they are thoroughly underexplored compared to some other areas.
The ocean covers the majority of the world, and most of the organisms live there. So if we don't understand what's going on in the oceans, then we can't understand what's going on in our own world.
So the oceans cover a huge proportion of the Earth's surface, and as such they're one of the main drivers of the climate that we see on land. So by understanding sort of how they have behaved, we can see how it would have been for life on land.
And they're so important. They're important for the way that we deal with climate change, so important for our understanding of how the planet works as a system.
if we don't know what's down there, we could be destroying environments and the biodiversity in these environments without even realising it. We could be losing, amazing resources which are possibly available down there, which we don't know anything about.